I will miss you." The sadness over Rob Reiner's death didn't end at his funeral. It slowly turned into a much worse pain. Even Roy and Jake were shocked when the will was finally read. The huge $200 million fortune that was built up over many years of hard work, fame, and a lasting legacy was given totally to charitable organizations. Right then, their sadness changed into something else, a sense of being yanked out of their own story. Initially shocked, shock quickly changed to anger. It was said that Jake couldn't hold back. They said their parents had put the world ahead of their family. A lot of calls to lawyers followed, which led to a tense court case that got a lot of attention from the public. From the start of the case, one new detail about the Reiner family's private life was revealed after another. It had been almost 2 weeks since Rob Reiner and Michelle Singer Reiner's bodies were found in their Brentwood home on December 14, 2025. Their family was finally able to have a quiet and private funeral. After the Los Angeles Examiner finished his or her work, the couple's bodies were let go to their family. By December 19th, their oldest son, Jake Reiner, was named as the official informant on both certificates and as the person who received their ashes. Records from the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health showed that Rob and Michelle Reiner were cremated and buried at Mount Sinai Mortuary, a well-known and respected Jewish burial home in the Hollywood Hills. Mount Sinai Mortuary is more than just a place to bury your dead. It's known for being where many of Hollywood's most famous and loved actors chose to be buried. It has a lot to do with the nearby is Mount Sinai Memorial Park, which is a holy graveyard that the Jewish community loves. In keeping with Jewish custom, the process is quick so that the body can be buried as soon as possible. It's possible that I had an issue with weed, which I likely did for a while. I was really hooked. Every day I smoked 15 to 25 joints. I mean, I've been on a lot of different anxiety and depression drugs since I was about 15 or 16. I've thought about killing myself, but never got to the point where I did something about it. Still hurting from their loss, Romy and Jake Reiner kept everything quiet to avoid drawing attention to themselves. There were no crowds or media attention, just a small group of close friends and family. It broke my heart that Rob and Michelle's ashes were brought to Jake's house. This was a way for their children to stay close to their parents during the hardest days of grief. People who know the family well said that no final choice had been made about where the body would be buried. Some people said that the ashes might be scattered in a special place or kept in part at the family graveyard. The peace didn't last long, though. Soon after, cameras from ABC News, Fox News, and NBC caught Romy and Jake going into a well-known Beverly Hills law company that deals with complicated inheritance disputes between Hollywood's wealthy people all the time. They were wearing dark clothes and sunglasses, and their faces showed that they were tired and sad. While cameras yelled questions, they didn't say a word. A lot of people saw the pictures and read the exciting news stories about a $200 million inheritance fight. That was all it took for rumors to go off the rails. People couldn't stop wondering why the brothers were seeing lawyers so quickly, especially since there hadn't been any official word or confirmation about how the assets would be split. The will had been opened in a proper way. Romy didn't say a word, and her eyes were heavy with sadness. Jake walked ahead to protect her, almost blocking out the bright cameras. Reporters rushed up and asked about their property rights and who would be in charge of their parents' estate. Has Rob Reiner's will been proven to be true yet? One news reporter spoke up. Who will handle the assets until the process is complete? Asked someone else. Their questions echoed through the cold hallway and had nothing to do with the pain of two people who were still mourning their parents less. After more than 2 weeks, you two could still be Wesley and Buttercup. We should be able to remember some of this. Remember that you did this. And just when everyone thought the story couldn't get any more sad, shocking new information came out. Someone close to the family said Rob Reiner had planned something that no one saw coming. Almost all of his reported $200 million fortune had been given to charitable organizations. At first, the news spread slowly, but it was clear that it sent shockwaves through society. One family friend of a long time said, Rob's choice wasn't based on rejection or being cold. It showed a way of life he had been following for a long time. For him, his kids should be able to stand on their own. He believed that having too much money from an inheritance could trap a person, making them less driven and void of purpose. The same friend said Rob talked a lot about being independent. Each time he told Jake, Romy or Nick that they needed to make their own way. He had a different reason. Nick had been dealing with personal problems for a long time, and Rob thought that going out into the real world might be the only way for him to get stronger and understand his own life better. Rob once said that Nick would never learn what duty meant if he always looked out for him. Later, a close friend said that Rob thought that giving someone who was still having mental problems a big inheritance would be like adding more fuel to a fire that was already going. He thought that life itself, through hard work and facing truth head-on, was the only real teacher. Romy and Jake were not the same. Rob saw the worst in them. He had always respected independence and being able to stand tall without anyone else's help. Jake already had his own life and a stable job. Romy was deeply involved in her artistic projects, which helped her move forward step by step. Rob thought they had both shown that they were valuable without inheriting money. He would joke, "My kids can handle it. They're stronger than people think." For Rob, success wasn't measured by how much money a parent left behind, but by whether their kids could keep living a meaningful life after they died. That's why Rob made his plans very clear a long time before he died. He planned to give most of his reported $200 million fortune to public charities. Money should still help people, he thought, not turn into a false sense of security that could hurt the next generation. He even did what those words said. According to people close to the family, Rob told Romy to sell their Brentwood home and other properties so that all the money would go directly to the charities he had carefully chosen. These charities were connected to causes that he and Michelle had supported for years, such as education, healthcare, and social services. One family friend talked about a normal evening chat that seemed almost prophetic in hindsight. Parents don't live to make things easier for their kids. They live to show them how to walk without help. Rob held on to this idea until the end of his life. He knew his kids would be hurt or even angry, but he was sure they would understand one day. Even so, that belief, no matter how good it was, became very hard to understand when tragedy hit. Nick wasn't required, but because he was being investigated, he was technically not allowed to inherit anything. So none of the children were left with even a hint. Something very real hit Jake and Romy hard. People who knew the family said that what happened next wasn't just papers. It turned sorrow into resistance. Behind the closed doors of a law office in Beverly Hills, the two brothers are said to have confronted lawyers in shock. To show how upset she was, Romy started crying and saying, "This isn't fair." Jake's response was stronger. He is said to have said, "They chose to care for the world, but forgot about their own children out of anger." Those weren't greedy words. They came from deep pain, from feeling left behind by the very people who had taught them compassion. They weren't mad about charity itself. They were mad about being erased from their family's story. Determined to get justice, Jake and Romy started looking into all the legal ways they could challenge the will. This included looking at the timing, trust structures, and possible clauses that could be contested. Soon, they had a strong legal team put together, including Daniel Kraus, who is known for overturning unbreakable wills, and Evelyn Hartman, who is an expert in charitable trusts. Their first meeting was tense, and Kraus is said to have told them, "If you want fairness, this will be a long and very hard fight." "We're not afraid," Jake said right away. "We've already lost everything," he said. At that moment, the verdict, according to witnesses, was a verdict of the heart. From there, the legal plan took shape. It challenged the charitable foundations, saying that they had wrongfully cut off the biological children from their parents' legacy. In private conversations, the siblings' goals became clear. They didn't just want a share, they wanted everything returned to the family. Romy, who was quieter but just as firm, is said to have said, "I don't want a portion. I need everything. They are no longer there, and we have nothing left." Their lawyers told them that going against public charities could hurt their parents' reputations and cause backlash. But Jake wouldn't budge. "Public opinion isn't my family." Those words summed up the emotional storm in the Reiner home, a fight between ethics and pain. The lawyers started collecting all the evidence they could find, including Rob's private journals, old emails, and notes from his private thoughts. Their goal was to show that, It's said that Krauss said this wasn't just a lawsuit about money, but also a fight to change what their father's legacy means. In the end, this wasn't just a battle in the courtrooms. It was also a battle in their hearts, where love, grief, and resentment clashed. The values Rob had taught his children, independence, accountability, and self-reliance, became the source of their rebellion. For Jake and Romy, this wasn't about lessons or philosophy anymore. It was about the pain of never getting the chance to ask him. Outside, Rob Reiner was still praised as a champion of kindness and fairness for everyone, but his family was said to be quietly falling apart over the same values he lived by. Rob always thought his children would understand, a very sad family friend said. He left, though, before they could say they weren't ready. So, Rob and Michelle Reiner's will story turned into something much deeper than a fight over money. It turned into a heartbreaking look at love, loss, and memory, and a warning that even people who mean well can leave hurts that can't be fixed by money or gifts. Rob and Michelle had been admired for decades as one of the most dedicated and socially aware pairs in Hollywood. Their lifelong desire to help others led them to fight for everything from early childhood education to human rights and freedom. The I Am Your Child Foundation, which they worked so hard to make, was a living symbol of their ideals and proof that their kindness had always gone beyond words. The company I Am Your Child was a big deal at the time, a nonprofit organization that wants to bring attention to the important years of growth from birth to age 3. With stars like Tom Hanks and Oprah Winfrey in powerful teaching movies like I Am Your Child, the first years go by quickly. A lot of American homes were affected by the project. It completely changed how a group of parents thought about how kids learn and grow emotionally as they are young. Based on that success, Rob Reiner went even further by starting Parents Action for Children, a group whose goal is to bring neuroscience and child development goes straight into making laws. He had a big idea to get California politicians to spend money on young children and long-term help for low-income families. Michelle worked hard behind the scenes to make sure that all the pieces of the puzzle fit together correctly. She did this by putting together donors, lawmakers, and experts. One of the most important things that happened to the couple was Proposition 10, a campaign that Rob led to put a small tax on tobacco products. The money from the tax would go directly to First 5 California, an initiative that helps kids under 5 years old with their health, education, and overall development. As a result, billions of dollars have been spent to help kids do well. Many people still think of it as one of the best models of how activism and making laws can work together to make real social change. Rob didn't stop fighting for equality there. In the past, he helped change rules in California that made it harder for people to get married. This is because he co-founded the American Foundation for Equal Rights. In the end, that fight led to the historic Supreme Court decision in 2015 that made equal marriage rights the law everywhere in the U.S. While Michelle was the quiet force who coordinated press contact, rallied artists, and made sure that every campaign had heart behind it. She was often the public face of the campaign. The couple always gave to a huge number of social causes, public education programs, mental health programs, and groups that help people restart their lives after recovery, in addition to their own groups. But most of these gifts were not publicized because Rob always thought that real kindness didn't need praise. Rob found a way to combine art and action even in his movies. His movies often had deep lessons about people and the world, having empathy, and he often held charity screenings to raise money for a wide range of community projects, from education for kids to civil rights work. As a producer, Michelle was the ideal partner because she combined creativity and kindness into a single goal that worked well. Not many people knew that Rob and Michelle also served on a number of advisory boards for community development programs in California, mainly those that dealt with child welfare and early childhood education. For real change to happen, they did more than just sign their names. They gave their time, energy, and feelings. Rob and Michelle were more than just leaders on boards of advisors. They were very involved. To make sure every dollar went where it needed to go, they personally went to long meetings, read a lot of papers, and argued over every line item in the budget. Over the years, they also gave millions of dollars to political organizations and held high-profile fundraisers in Hollywood for Al Gore, Hillary Clinton, and Joe Biden. Rob even thought about running for governor of California at one point, but in the end he decided that politics wasn't his calling. It was in lobbying and telling stories. He would always put his family and morals ahead of his own goals. Rob wasn't afraid to speak out about national problems either. In 2017, he helped start an independent committee whose sole job was to look into concerns about the election. Michelle was there for him through everything. She often co-produced films like God and Country, which looked closely at how faith and politics affect people in modern America. Their effect couldn't be summed up in money alone. It was written on real money. That meant that millions of kids in California could get a better start in school. Many couples got approval of their equal rights. Progressive ideas also got a louder voice in Hollywood and beyond because of how hard they worked to promote them. It wasn't a surprise to people who knew Rob that he was going to give almost all of his money to charity. It fit right in with the way he had lived his life. He was kind in a way that wasn't just for fun, but for a long-term reason. But that made me think of another question. Find out how Rob Reiner got to be so rich in the first place. The answer is a lifetime of working hard at entertainment and sharing stories. His journey started with acting, especially the lead role he played in the famous TV show All in the Family. His famous career began with the show, which made him famous all over the world, but his work behind the camera was what left him a lasting memory and made him rich. Rob made hit movie after hit movie as a director and producer. Some movies, like Misery, A Few Good Men, The American President, and Stand By Me, were more than just important parts of culture. They did really well at the box office. During his most successful years in the late 1980s and early 1990s, Rob was said to be making tens of millions of dollars per movie and producing fees and back-end profit shares that kept him making money long after the movies were over. Robin went from being a famous actor to one of Hollywood's most respected filmmakers, thanks to his creativity and business sense. He also built up the huge fortune that would later become the subject of one of Hollywood's most emotional inheritance fights. When Rob Reiner co-founded Castle Rock Entertainment in 1987, it was one of the most important business turns in his life. The business quickly became a major force in Hollywood and made famous movies like Seinfeld and The Shawshank Redemption. When Castle Rock was finally sold and reorganized in the early 1990s, Rob got a huge payment from his ownership stake. This was the single biggest boost in his life's wealth. He also got a lot of his money from smart real estate deals all over Los Angeles. It is now known as the Brentwood Mansion, and he got it from Norman Lear in 1991 for about $4, $75,000. The value of that land today is thought to be $10 to $13, 5,000. In Malibu's exclusive Colony area, Rob also owned a beautiful beachfront house. It was bought for about $4 million in the 1990s and is now worth up to $20 million. It was often hired for as much as $150,000 a month during the busiest times. That was not the end of his collection. Rob owned a number of high-end homes in Beverly Hills and other fine areas of Los Angeles. Over time, the growing Hollywood real estate market helped those investments grow in value, which kept his finances stable for decades. Rob did make money from other sources besides real estate, though. Every year, his artistic work continued to make him money. Classic movies like This Is Spinal Tap and When Harry Met Sally kept playing over and over again, getting shown all over the world, being streamed online, and making money for the studios. It may not have seemed like much at a time, but all of those payments added up to a lot of money over time. In fact, Rob was most proud of the fact that the copyright disagreement over This Is Final Tap was finally settled. That agreement made it easier for Rob and his co-creators to protect their artistic and financial rights, a victory that meant a lot to him and helped his long-term income even more. Rob was careful with his money, even when he wasn't having fun. He kept a broad set of investments, including stocks and other safe assets. Even though these weren't his main source of income, they helped keep his wealth steady, especially when he wasn't in charge. Many people don't know how involved Michelle Singer Reiner was in running everything. Everything. She wasn't just my love partner, she was also my partner in crime. Michelle co-produced movies, gave advice on projects, and helped make big choices about money. Because of her impact, the family was able to avoid the money problems that Hollywood stars often face. Rob built a company worth about $200 million over the course of many years, with help from All in the Family, Castle Rock Entertainment, hit movies, lifelong royalties, and expensive homes in Brentwood and Malibu. Even so, the irony can't be ignored. The wealth that comes from years of hard work and creativity and love turned into the source of grief after he died. It was like a thunderclap when Rob's will was made public. He left all of his money and property, which was the result of 50 years of hard work and creativity, not to his children but to charities and causes he believed in. It was a kind and generous thing to do, but it broke up his family. The world saw a man giving back to society everything he had. But for his kids, it felt like the farthest thing from their dad's death, like he hadn't even hugged them goodbye. Did Rob think that true love meant getting people to be independent by giving them nothing important? Or was it a choice made by one person after years of being emotionally apart that could not be fixed by money? Those scary questions are still hanging in the air. Rob Reiner's last act, a final act of kindness or a quiet act of heartbreak? Was it knowledge or a lack of understanding? Maybe both. Thanks for reading all the way to the end of this story. A story with a lot of history, ideas, and pain that isn't said. If you have your own ideas about Rob Reiner's will or how love and legacy can clash in strange ways, please leave them below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications if you want to hear more stories like this one about strong families, hidden facts, and legacies that live on long after the spotlight goes away. Because some stories, even after the last page turns, it will never really end.